What's up, ballpark fans? My name is Nick Carey, and welcome to the American Ballpark Road Trip and another detour where we take you to museums, attractions, and hardball destinations. Today we're taking you behind these doors to the one-of-a-kind GroveWood Baseball Museum here in Morristown, Tennessee. So grab your favorite ballpark brew, sit back, relax, and enjoy the trip.
We'll also take you to a dinner and meet and greet experience at the museum featuring two-time NL MVP and Atlanta Braves legend Dale Murphy. We fueled up for our exploration of GroveWood Baseball Museum by visiting Redbud Deli, a Morristown favorite since it was opened by Lisa and Wally Long in 2014 and named for the beauty of the pink spring blossoms of the redbud tree. They provide delicious quick bites with unique offerings like Rocky Mountain meatloaf, chili shrimp tacos, plus sandwiches, pastas, salads, and loaded baked potatoes, and to polish it all off, a variety of desserts made in-house daily. It's a warm atmosphere with friendly people dedicated to the restaurant's mission of welcoming their community to nourish their bodies with fresh, delicious food and a place to connect and belong with others.
We are here in the museum itself with Jamison Pack, the founder of the museum. So Jamison, give us a little bit of the history. How do you go from a baseball memorabilia collector to museum owner, curator, maestro here?
I appreciate the compliment there. It wasn't intentional. It started with just collecting a few autographs, and then my wife graciously gave me a room in our house to put up some memorabilia, and from there I was like, wow, this is fun to be surrounded by baseball memorabilia. It was kind of a cool like man cave idea. And as my collection grew, I quickly ran out of space. And so I started dreaming at that point, like, wow, wouldn't it be cool to actually have a museum? But I really didn't think it was ever going to happen. And I still kept collecting. I'm a big baseball nerd when it comes to baseball memorabilia and the history of the game. And so 3 or 4 years after that, the opportunity did present itself. And so, I never in a million years thought this would be real, to be honest. And I pinch myself every time I walk in here still that it exists.
The museum's collection is curated as a walk through time via baseball and begins with the earliest incarnations of the game before moving ahead to the dead ball era, showcasing items from its icons like Ty Cobb and ballparks like the longtime home of the Chicago White Sox, the first Comiskey Park, and everything in between. A special corner across from the dead ball era is dedicated to Negro Leagues baseball, first officially organized in 1920, and artifacts featuring its icons like Buck O'Neil, Satchel Paige, Cool Papa Bell, Josh Gibson, Ray Dandridge, and many more. Next come the 1920s and 30s, the beginning of baseball's live ball era, and the Herculean feats of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and the rest of the Murderers Row Yankees who dominated the American League, contrasted by the characters of the Gas House Gang St. Louis Cardinals of the National League. And make sure throughout the museum to leave no placard unread. because each artifact or autograph tells a story about its unique place in baseball history, whether it's a 1922 Rogers Hornsby home run ball or the 1930 tax return of Hall of Fame pitcher Chief Bender. And don't miss former fixtures of the ballparks where that history actually happened, like original seats from Crosley Field and the original Yankee Stadium.
If you had 3 or 4 items that people have to see when they come to GroveWood Baseball Museum, that maybe we can call it a teaser that they have to see while they're here.
Depends on the era that they may connect with. A lot of people love the Babe Ruth home run ball and the Lou Gehrig home run ball from both from the 27 season. The called shot ball is cool. The 1909 World Series game used ball is cool. Plenty of game used uniforms, bats, autographs. It just depends.
Specially connected to the legend of Ruth's called shot are the handwritten notes of reporter Edward Munsell on display here that were transcribed nearly word for word in his post-game recap. Artifacts pertaining to baseball immortals Joltin' Joe DiMaggio and Bob Feller lead off the 1940s displays, along with a number of World Series baseballs, one of which may be of interest to Chicago Cubs fans for better or worse. Keep an eye out for artifacts and memorabilia connected to Jackie Robinson, Elston Howard, and the integration of baseball leading to the game's golden age in the 1950s and early 60s.
Usually when people come in, there is an exhibit that is from a particular era or decade that they're like, oh, this was when, and then they'll start telling whatever memories brought their love of the game. Yeah, it varies, really.
Turn a corner, and on come the tides of change in the world and baseball in the 1960s, 70s, and the start of baseball's modern era, when pitchers like Bob Gibson owned the mound and hitters like Hammer and Hank Aaron put finishing touches on their groundbreaking additions to the record books and the overall history of the game.
For me, 80s, 90s, you know, that's pure nostalgia for me. I love all the jerseys and game used bats and balls from those decades. Names of undeniably legendary players like Wade Boggs, Darryl Strawberry,
Nolan Ryan, George Brett, Ozzie Smith, and the juniors, Cal Ripken and Ken Griffey, and of course Dale Murphy, have their places here among many others, as artifacts from the 1980s and 90s literally stretch floor to ceiling and commemorate the great players, memorable games, legendary World Series, and even baseball films, as the timeline of the museum brings visitors as close to the day of their visit as history will allow.
From our understanding, you're bringing a little bit of history and living history to the museum here. What's in the future? How would you like this museum to grow? We know you've done some player appearances from some players who've had a big part in baseball history. So how would you like to see this museum grow and have people experience it?
Sure. So I really didn't know what this was for when I put it together. I didn't know what could come of it. Now we're scheduling appearances, dinners, and meet and greets. I've got several other people that we've talked to that it's a matter of lining them up. My goal for 2024 is to have every couple months an appearance, an event. Hopefully at some point we might get to every month having an event. I don't know if that's possible, if that's real, but that's where I think it's the most fun, when you get to actually meet our baseball heroes and hear stories and get those opportunities, those experiences here in Morristown, Tennessee.
Now we'll hear from one of those baseball heroes, Dale Murphy, as part of one of GroveWood Baseball Museum's dinner events, featuring a delicious dinner, a Q&A, and a meet and greet.
I got offered $52,000. The story actually goes, I heard that the scout told the general manager with the Braves that I think we can sign Murphy for 65. And I'm like, I signed for 52. So they got a bargain, but yeah. So my mom and dad and I had a scholarship to Arizona State, but we figured that it was kind of, honestly, it was just like this. I didn't know what I was really getting into. There's just a lot of information pre-internet. You know, the Braves called me, might have sent me a telegram, I don't know. And so I didn't know where Kingsport, Tennessee was. I hardly knew where Atlanta was, but that April I had watched Hank break Babe's record. So I knew about the Atlanta Braves. But they called me up, they go, hey, you know, a scout, our regional scout's gonna come negotiate a contract, we just drafted you. I was like, thanks. And hung up. I was like, okay. We figured that was enough money to give it 5 years. That's what was kind of my plan. And then I would try to save a chunk of that and go to college if I was going to pass up going to college. But Braves drafted me, and I went to Kingsport, Tennessee, and you know, cried myself to sleep every night when I got here. And by the way, I thought that sound was piped in here, Jamison. I'm like, you have cool jazz music from the 40s. And now you got an old train. It's just like anyway.
It's like a train load of people coming to see Dale Murphy.
I love that sound. Teams that were not competitive would let guys play all year. It just doesn't happen now. But just to get the experience, you know. And so that's kind of what happened in September '76, and I got called up in September '77. Then my first full year was '78. But you know, if I'd been with other clubs or a different era, I don't know if I'd have got called up. Joe gave me some very specific things. He wanted me to, you know, hit the ball the other way a lot better. You know, not pull off so much. And, you know, maybe cut my strikeouts down, which would have been good. But Joe just, you know, I think back on that. I'm like, man, that is crazy. He would take time away from his family, go down there and just talk to me about hitting. And it really ingrained in me some great things. And I just took off from there. '83 was a better year than '82. And Bobby saved my career. Joe just made my career, turned it around. Joe changed my whole perspective, because in '83, I stole 30 bases. I stole a few bases, but Joe turned me into a guy that was thinking about stealing all the time. And I ended up being a complete player. It was the most satisfying thing. But Joe said, I think you can steal some bases, like more. And I'm gonna give you the green light. You can steal whatever you want. And that's what I did for the rest of my career. Well, once I started slowing down, that changed. But my point is, I was a complete player that I just really got into this groove, as they say, that Joe kind of led me into. It just kind of happened. I was healthy and I was having my best years. Playing streaks, you got to be very careful of, because if you're not playing that well, it's going to start you got to be careful. And it eventually got to the point where I couldn't. I was compromising the streak for the good of the team. And so, but I'm proud of it. But it wasn't something I started out thinking, I think I'm going to play the next 5 years without missing a game. I mean, it just happened. I was healthy. I was playing well. I just went through the history of me getting called up to the Braves. I didn't know if I was going to be there. I signed with the intent of giving it 5 years. Let me see, my first, and it took me 4. And, but, I didn't know what was going to happen. It wasn't a straight shot to the big leagues. And then people said, well, why didn't you hang in there? 400 people like the even numbers. I'm like, I was done. I was done. And, a little family history. We have 8 children, and Nancy was due with Madison. We have 7 boys and a girl. Was due with our girl in fall of '93, and I was like, I gotta get home. And so I did.
For several years, you were as good or better than anyone in the game. You won back-to-back Most Valuable Player awards. You are famous and beloved. All of those things often combine to Cooperstown in your future. It has not for you. Where is that in your mind and your heart? Is it something you think about? Does it concern you, or how do you feel about it?
Well, very philosophical about it. I have a lot of people that are very supportive. In fact, all the people of the Hall of Fame, whenever I talk to them, they're like, we don't have any votes, Merv, but we're pulling for you. And the president, a few years ago, I imagine it was the president that started this whole thing where he recognized that you're lumping thousands of old-time veterans into one pot. He said we should split that into eras, so these guys are judged in their era. And so they changed the voting, and I'm in, I think it's called the modern era. Is that what it is, Mike? And so I'm eligible again this year. And so it comes up, the modern era, Negro League era, current, I don't know what I think there's 4 or 3. So it rotates, and I'm eligible again. So I'm very thankful to be eligible, and thankful for Hall of Fame that it's given us guys in the 80s extra looks. That's what this is all about. Alan Trammell went in, Lee Smith went in, Fred Griff went in with this new voting system. So I don't know what to tell you except that I'm excited about this year. We'll see what happens. So Glav goes down and looks at the lineup, and he sees it's me. And he goes down to Bobby, and he goes, Bobby, Murph's the first guy up next to him. And Bobby probably said a few other things, but this is the way Bobby is. He doesn't care, which he shouldn't, about who the other guy is. You gotta do what you gotta do. And he goes, I don't care who it is. So as you can see on the replay, the lab goes out there in a no-win situation. Well, I wish he would have hit me because he wasn't throwing that hard. And also gave me a chance to get out of the way. He throws at me 3 times, and by that 3rd time, I'm up there hitting. I'm like, he's gonna throw at me again. You can see me go like this. I'm almost out of the box. There's some pictures online, but I didn't, really research too much because I kind of wanted to, kind of get that feel of just coming in here and kind of unknown, and I'm blown away. I think just everything, the way he's displayed everything. It makes me wish I collected more stuff. And also, I agree with you. Some of this stuff is just before my time, and it's fascinating history to look at. And I've heard the stories. Jameson's got a great display over here on the called shot of Babe Ruth. You hear it, and he's got that broken down on what really happened. But then as you make your way around, I played against Willie McCovey. I think I saw him hit his 500th home run. I think it was in the stadium. Didn't play against Willie Mays or Koufax or usual, but then I start creeping over here and I'm like, oh wow, I'm in a museum now. and come over here and I'm like, I was like, yeah, that was a long time ago. You should be in this wall here. So I think gratitude is the first thing, you know, I think about. I mean, I'm up there on a wall with Schmidt, Box, Ryan Sandberg, Rob Young, Kirby, and Ozzy. You know, I was just so fortunate. So mostly gratitude that I'm up there on a wall. It's hard to explain.
Thank you so much for showing us around here. And
Sure.
of course, this detour is going to show a little bit, but folks, you have to come see Jamison and GroveWood Baseball Museum in person to see this full collection. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you.